Good evening, everyone. It's 6:04, so we're going to get our Addison County Democratic Committee February meeting off and running. I want to thank everyone for attending. We have an amazing turnout here in person. And Tanya, how many people do we have on Zoom?
I just admitted the 28th person.
Wow. 28, and I think that will continue to rise. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eliza Spencer. I am the chair of the Addison County Democratic Committee, and I'm joined tonight by our vice chair, Tanya Biker. Lee Herdman, who's our secretary, is on our Zoom. John Spencer, our treasurer. Hannah Sessions, our state delegate. And Sarah Buckley, our Middlebury College delegate. Tonight we have an incredible lineup, an incredible agenda. Before we jump into that, I want to thank the residents here at Otter Creek for hosting our meetings and for giving us all the technology we need to be able to host these meetings. Also, thank you to Middlebury Community Television, who is recording this meeting, and we will be able to send that link out to everyone after the session. So thank you, MCT. All right, like I said, we have a full agenda.
Sorry, I'm also recording on Zoom.
Oh, thank you, and we're also recording on Zoom, everyone. All right, we have a full agenda tonight, and we're focusing tonight's meeting on a Meet the Candidates Forum with 3 Democratic candidates for Lieutenant Governor, Esther Charlestin, Molly Gray, and Ryan McLaren. Following the candidate forum, we will have a short business meeting, and we will adjourn around 7:15. If the candidates are willing and able, we would encourage them to hang out after the meeting and answer any questions that might not have gotten answered after we adjourn the meeting. I want to put a plug in for our March meeting, which is going to be on March 18th, and we will be having a topic of education policy, and we'll have Representative Rebecca Holcomb and Representative Peter Conlin joining us on Zoom to talk about education policy in March. So please join us then. Okay, before we jump into the forum, I wanted to check and see if we have any legislators in the room or on Zoom who might want to share anything about the current legislative session. Tanya, do we have anyone?
That has it set up, I can actually see it. If you are a legislator on Zoom, could you unmute if you have some comments? Hearing none.
Hearing none. Okay. I am remiss that I forgot to thank all of the town chairs that are here tonight as well as on Zoom. So thank you, town chairs. We could not do this work without you. So thank you for being here. All right, I think we're early. So let's jump in. Candidate forum, everyone. A few notes on the format. Each of our 3 candidates will have 15 minutes of time to introduce themselves, make remarks, and answer questions. Our timer, Sarah, up here, will give a 10-minute, 5-minute, a 2-minute warning, and your time's up warning. Yes, thank you, Sarah. And I will also grab a mic if I have to at the end of the 15.
I can.
Okay, front and center, Sarah. So for those of you joining us on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat, and one of the executive committee members will read them out loud, and we'll toggle between in the room and on chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible in that 15-minute time frame. I can't promise this from the candidates. They can yell at me or not, but if they're unable to answer some of the questions from chat, we can send those to the candidates afterward, and if they're able and willing, they will answer those questions. Okay. For those of you in the room, please raise your hand if you have a question for one of our candidates, and our treasurer, John Spencer, will bring a microphone over so that everyone can hear in the room as well as on Zoom. And I think that's it for my format preparation. So first up, we have Molly Gray. Molly, welcome to Addison County.
Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Can you hear me in the back? Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Molly Gray, and I'm so happy to be here in person to see faces that I recognize, some new faces. Welcome to everyone joining on Zoom. I think you all probably have a question in mind. Why the heck is Molly Gray running for Lieutenant Governor again? Right? Well, let me tell you, it's been a time over the last 3 years of tremendous growth and a tremendous amount of perspective, big growth and big perspective. But I haven't stepped back and I haven't given up. And tonight I want to talk about some things that have really changed for the better and some things that have changed for the worse and are driving why I'm here tonight. Let's start with the good news. The good news is that I'm now mom to a 2.5-year-old, Jack. I think maybe he's online and probably wondering what mom's doing. And as any parent knows, you have a kid and the world changes. And there's nothing more humbling than dirty diapers and mountains of coffee and no sleep and just figuring out how to laugh at yourself when things don't really go the way you planned. But then there's another child in my life. 3 years ago, I helped start an organization and really get it off the ground. It's called the Vermont Afghan Alliance. Some of you may have heard of it. Statewide nonprofit helping Afghan veterans and allies who risked everything for our government over a 21-year period learn to drive, get a Vermont driver's license, women who could never have that opportunity in Afghanistan, get a job, get housing, and really help to grow our workforce. And I've always believed in my heart of hearts that we have to, in Vermont, with our demographic crisis, welcome individuals with their talents and their skills from all parts of the world, because that's the only way we're going to get through this. And I've been doing just that. And with this work, if I've had a bad day or I've questioned hope and resilience, it is these individuals, the 650 Afghans who now live in Vermont and not necessarily call it home, because many are still separated from their wives and kids and families and hiding in Afghanistan. But they're living in every community, and including right here in Middlebury. And that's pretty special. That's hopeful. But even with a lot of hope, there have been some tremendously dark days. And those really dark days started about a year ago when I logged into the payment management system, which Ryan probably knows about PMS, right? Anyone working with a nonprofit and getting federal funds, we logged in, and our funds were completely frozen, as if providing driving lessons to Afghan women in Vermont is somehow woke, right? Or Marxist or whatever, right? I mean, come on. And then fast forward a couple of months when an Afghan man who had got his CDL, right? We need more people getting CDL licenses, picked up a load of coffee to go to California and somehow was routed through Canada, which he didn't mean to do, but then was put into Department of Corrections custody here in Vermont by ICE and didn't have access to an interpreter or a legal counsel for a week. And that's not on ICE, that's on Vermont. Fast forward to this fall, when our state, our governor, was the first in the nation to end food assistance for refugees and asylees here in Vermont. No questions asked because of a wrongful determination of federal law. And then fast forward to the last 6 weeks, where we felt as an organization, and many of you who are working, I'm sure, with the migrant community or the refugee community here in Vermont, the palpable fear of what's happening in Minneapolis, luckily done, you think, in Minneapolis, what's been happening in Maine, happening here in Vermont. And I know I'm getting heavy, really heavy tonight, really quick. But it's that serious. And so for me, this isn't a ceremonial position. This is an extremely important position. And we know that because just, I think it was 10 days ago, our Vermont Republican Lieutenant Governor had the tie-breaking vote to send a U.S. attorney who has been doing Trump's bidding on immigration law for the last year, and we had to go toe-to-toe with him, to the Vermont Supreme Court. So anyone who thinks this office doesn't matter, it does. And the coming years of the Trump administration are going to be the hardest and the most dangerous. So that's tough. And we need to pick our fighter, and we need to have seasoned, experienced, strong leadership, all hands on deck across the state right now. But I also want to talk about some of the really big issues that are impacting us day in and day out. It is diapers, it is daycare, it is housing costs, it is education, which I'm sure there's going to be a question about that. But I know as a mom and as a caregiver to a mom that we have a healthcare crisis in the state and we have to figure it out. And there's so many big, challenging issues ahead of us. But we've also done some pretty important things. We have a leading child care policy in the nation. The New York Times just wrote about it, right? We can invest. We can be bold, we can be visionary, and we can do things in really hard times. So that's why I'm running. I'm willing. I don't like politics. And I know what it's like to lose badly and publicly. I know what it's like to win. I will never give up on Vermont. I will never give up on you. And I will use every tool that I've got as a former prosecutor, as a farm kid, as a public school student, as a lifelong Vermonter to be in the trenches day in and day out with our treasurer who's fighting, our secretary of state who's fighting, with our legislature that's fighting, with Charity Clark who's taking it to the mat, with Becca Ballin who's taking it to the mat with Pam Bondi. We need every office at the statewide level fighting for Vermont and getting us through this really, really tough time. So I'm all in, that's why I'm here tonight, and I really look forward to hearing from you, and I'll stop there.
Questions?
Do not have any questions yet on Zoom, so Zoomers, let us know.
No questions. Does anyone care about education? Are there any questions in Addison County about education? What's on your mind?
How many school districts is the right number of school districts?
I mean, who wants to close schools in Vermont? No one. I don't. Right? I mean, I was born in a farmhouse in Newberry where there still isn't a dryer, a dishwasher, or a microwave. So if you need those things, don't come to our house. But if we close Newberry, the Newberry Elementary School, we close Newberry. And I think that's a concern for Cornwall, right? For Bridport, for Ripton, for Starksboro, right? That's a concern for so many schools around the state, especially at a time when we've been working so hard to deliver broadband to the last mile, right? Why did we do that if we're going to close schools? At the same time, we do have to address our educational costs, right? Why are they so high? My question is, what about healthcare? Why is our healthcare spending so extremely high in the state? And if we don't address those underlying costs, there's no amount of consolidation, ultimately, that's going to lower costs in the long run. And I think those questions need to be answered in this process. And I want to say, I'm not here to beat up the legislature. I think this is extremely hard work, and people are working hard to figure it out. But we need to make sure that we don't do something that ultimately isn't going to set us up for success in the future.
We do have some,
Yay.
I'm just wondering what you do. Oh, sorry. Hi, how's it going? I guess I'm wondering what your thoughts are about redistricting and the process that is happening now.
You mean the education redistricting?
Yes.
I mean, I just sort of answered the question, but my concern is that if we don't address underlying costs that are really driving our education spending, right? Then there's no amount of consolidation. And 3 years from now, if we start creating mega districts or 19 school districts, I think was the most recent map that came out, we're going to be in the same place. So yes, we need to address our educational costs, and I hope that people kind of come back to what are the root drivers of those costs, and also recognize, like my brothers living in Newberry with their kids, they know that Newberry of today is not the Newberry that we went to, right? But I trust schools, I trust parents, right? I trust our towns to help being part of that process. And I think the task force that spent much of the summer and the fall meeting with Vermonters, hearing from over 5,000. I went to some of the meetings, and people have a lot of ideas and good ideas. And I guess to come back to, we're in extremely hard times. And you lift up a different hood in Vermont right now, and you see the hard times, right? Be it healthcare spending, be it climate action, the cost of housing. Do we have enough housing? We have massive challenges, but I know the answers to those challenges are in this room and they're in the state. And I am confident that we're going to figure it out.
We have a question in the chat from Hannah Deming. Hannah's asking you to speak on the growing unaffordability of property taxes in Vermont.
Hi, Hannah. Thank you. The question was about the growing lack of affordability in the state and the increases in property taxes. So it's no secret to anyone that we are an aging state and that our tax base and workforce continues to shrink and shrink and shrink. And so when that happens, we see taxes going up, we see health insurance costs going up, and Vermont becoming less and less affordable. My concern is, again, on education, that we have to address the underlying costs. We need to continue to welcome people to the state, which means that we have to have affordable housing, we have to have accessible housing, we have to have childcare, which we do have more and more. We need to be making strategic investments in order to continue to grow our tax base so that we can live within our means, but I do not believe that cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting continues to be the answer. We need new ideas. We need to look to the future, and I want to be part of that.
Oh, I think we have one in the room.
Yeah.
Toggle back and forth.
I was just wondering if you'd comment on some of the tensions you might see if you're elected with Phil Scott, on what the main ones might be and what you might push really hard on.
Yeah. So when I was elected in 2020, I was one of the youngest lieutenant governors in the nation. I was the same age as Phil Scott's daughter, and a little awkward, right? But we worked very hard. I worked very hard because as lieutenant governor, you need to be prepared to be governor at any point, right? And it happened with Howard Dean. We were at that very height of COVID, and our schools were closed, we were shut down. There was no room for, do we have different views on childcare? We had to figure it out. So we met every 2 weeks bilaterally. We had a strong working relationship, even though we didn't agree on everything. I'd say right now the moment's a lot different, and I've seen how we are responding as a state to Trump, and I do not believe we're doing enough. And that's why I'm stepping up and stepping forward and wanting, as a human rights lawyer, as someone who's been in the trenches for the last year, working with a very vulnerable community, wanting to make sure we're doing everything we can to hold the line. And so I'm willing to be a check at times. I'm willing to, I'm not a namer and shamer, I'm a knower and shower. So let's talk about it, let's figure it out. But then ultimately, to go public and to be very clear about the things that we need to do to protect our state. And I think that's extremely important right now.
Sarah, how much time do you have?
A minute and a half.
Okay, I've got a question here on the chat. Jessica Teets asks, and sort of related to that, how can states like Vermont help protect democracy?
Yeah, I mean, everything. Okay, we can lead, who said that? We can lead the way. Yes, we absolutely can. Sarah Copeland-Kansas, our incredible Secretary of State right now, is in court trying to fight the Trump administration so that our voter data is not turned over, right? That's just one example. Charity Clark keeps taking it to the mat with this administration holding the line. And the same thing must be true with Lieutenant Governor. I just want to bring us back to that vote. That's not a symbolic vote. We now have a Supreme Court justice who for the last year was questioning whether green card holders had free speech rights. Did anyone follow the Mohsen Madawi case? Yeah, I mean, that really matters right now. So bless anybody who wants to go to Washington. That's not me. Bless anyone who wants to be governor right now. That's not me, unless something happens, right? But I know I have the skills to help us get through this extremely, extremely dangerous and hard time, because the final 2 years are going to be the worst, if that is even the end. And I'm willing to put it all on the line to help us get through it.
Oh,
And my
perfect
time is
timing,
up, but thank you all so very, very much. I'll be around and really look forward to catching up.
Thank you, Molly. So next up, we have Esther Charlestin. Esther, come on up. Welcome to Addison County. A familiar place to you, I think.
Well, good evening, everyone. So good to see you. And Addison County is where I started, Middlebury. That's where I start being on the select board, and it's so wonderful to be here tonight. So, it's an honor to join you. Thank you for having me. Those on Zoom, thank you for being here. All right, yes, let's clap it up for those who are showing up any way they can. That's amazing. So, when I think about the time that we're in right now, when I think about how I want to engage, these last few years, I've had the opportunity to see the underbelly of Vermont. It's easy to be in Chittenden County or Addison County and forget, but there are folks who are going through it. And what I mean by that is people who are working multiple jobs just to try to make rent. I think about those families who can't buy their first home or having trouble buying their first home. I think about the folks who want to sell their house to downsize, but that's not an option because they'll be cash poor. All of that happening in our state right now. I think about this being Trump's America. A few years ago, I didn't imagine we would be here, and yet we're here. The divide is heavy. But yet we still choose to show up. And I still choose to show up. I also, as Molly talked about, no great loss. I had the audacity to run for governor 2 years ago. And during the time that after I lost, I sat and thought about how do I want to still engage in Vermont? How do I want to still engage in politics? And I'm honored to say Lieutenant Governor is where I saw my gifts fit best. Because it's about building relationships. Because let's talk about it. Lieutenant Governor, as Molly mentioned, right? Some consider it ceremonial, but if something happens to the governor, then you become governor. But what do you do? My intention is to serve as an advocate. My intention is to build relationships. And my intention is to do that because that's what I've been doing these last few years. I've been talking to educators. I've been talking to parents, to students, to really hearing and understanding what is important in our state right now and how can we make it better? How can we have folks come to Vermont, as we do have an aging population, and still show up and show out? How can young people have an option to stay here and grow and thrive here, and people to age in place beautifully? Is that an option still? I believe so, and we can fight for it. So my entire philosophy has been grounded in one core belief, and that is listening to people. Meaningful change starts with listening. And when I ran for governor in 2024, I was focused on meeting people where they were. What I learned on the campaign, I have taken with me. My deep desire to make sure people feel seen and heard wherever they are. Because too many Vermonters feel left out of the conversation. And so, as Lieutenant Governor, my work will be to be a bridge, honestly. Elevate community voices and ensure every Vermonter has a seat at the table. Our state needs steady leadership that gets results, and results start by listening. So that is how I'm going to engage, and that is how I'm going to be. Start by listening and bringing people together and having those hard conversations. Thank you. now I can get away from the podium, get away from my speech. I want to hear your questions. Talk to me.
Any in the room? Certainly. Okay, so we can go back to some of the questions that were not asked earlier. So Eugenie Delaney asked, why do public school dollars go to the private vouchers? Can you talk about that, Esther?
Yes, that is something that I don't believe we should do. I believe public school dollars need public funding, needs to go into our public schools. There shouldn't be any vouchers.
Oh, okay, sorry. Any questions in the room? All right, we'll go back to the. Okay, sorry, Esther. Give me a second to scroll here.
No, take your time. And while you're scrolling, I realize many of you know me, but some of you don't. I'm Esther Charlestin, and I am a Vermonter by choice. I moved here a few years ago. Now, some of you are laughing and nodding, so I think I have some Vermonters by choice in the audience. I moved here and saw that this was a place where I can raise my children and they can be children longer. And can I say I am right? I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, and you all, the joy that radiates with them, in them, through them, reminds me of why I choose to engage. The future I want for them is why I'm investing in this great state. Yes?
So what would you do about the education system? What would you do about the education system here in Vermont?
One, I would encourage the people. I love that there was a listening session and there's 5,000 folks who engage. And I work with school districts and people are still feeling disconnected. Teachers are feeling burnt out. And some families are taking their children out of the public school and homeschooling. So not everybody's feeling connected. Administrators are being burnt out. So I would work to make sure that those folks are engaged in the process in a meaningful way.
Can you tell us about the unique perspectives that you would bring to the role? So what experience do you have, what perspectives do you have that makes you a different and attractive candidate?
Absolutely. I've lived several lives. So I worked in higher education for over 10 years. And then I was an administrator in the public schools and now work as a consultant. And I help folks have hard conversations. So what does that mean? That means sitting and having those uncomfortable conversations, talking about the elephant in the room. So from higher ed to public school to consultant to now actually family engagement specialist, actually here in Vermont, where again I get to witness the underbelly and help those who are disenfranchised. So those who are struggling with addiction, those who are struggling substance abuse, those who are struggling to keep their children. I get to work with them and coach them. And honestly, I'm a Black woman. Choosing to live in Vermont and making a way. That is like, can we, all right, let's make that. I am choosing to engage in this way because I know it matters. It matters here in Vermont. And as we're attracting more, because that's so important, bringing different people here in our state with different perspectives, it's important that we have somebody in the room who has a different experience and can speak to it. I've been a single mom, and I'm now married to a wonderful man, Jesse, shout out. And we got married at the UU here. Love that. And I know what partnership looks like, but I also know what housing insecurity looks like. And I know what it is when community comes together, and I will bring all of those things to Montpelier. I see a question in the back, yes.
I was just wondering also your thoughts on redistricting and how that can happen or what that might look like as we move forward in the next year or two.
I know. Ooh, y'all, the tension in the room. Let me say, I was with educators in November, educators all across the state, and I did professional development, and what did we talk about? How to navigate tension and build trust when we talk about education. And when I tell you, in a room full of educators, folks were saying that they don't trust the system, they don't trust the process. And so buy-in and getting folks engaged in the process is so important, and helping them feel empowered, because it's real lives, it's real people. And closure, it's just, I'm nervous, let's just say that. I'm nervous and I feel the tension.
We have a Zoom question.
Oh, yes.
We have time, Sarah. So Lee Herdman asks, do you think you will work well with Phil Scott and the legislators?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. And I believe, because I'm open, and the work that I do in my professional life is working with people and helping them have hard conversations, making space and holding space, talking about the awkward thing and finding a way. And so I believe in relationships. That's the work that I do. I love that. I know I'm staring at you, Eliza, but I'm staring at the crowd now. But it takes relationship. It takes getting to know people, taking the time, inviting everybody to coffee, and making sure you're connecting. And that is a strength that I bring.
One in the room.
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm from Starksboro. Also made Vermont my home 2 years ago, so I hear you. You referenced earlier that you are good at kind of sitting with and naming the elephant in the room. And I think it's easy to say education, property taxes, those are pretty easy things to identify as being difficult.
Yeah.
What do you think Vermont's elephant is? And what do you think the kind of missteps have been to get us there?
Oh, beautiful question, Adam. For me, the elephant in the room is our aging population, is our declining population. We're not gonna do well if there's no one here. And so as I think of Vermont, 5-10 years from now, it's not looking good. Folks who are here now, but our young people don't have jobs or not staying. We have a few colleges here, but as people are here, they have a great experience, they love Vermont, they go skiing, and guess what they do? They leave. And so it would be so important to really build on that, our population.
We have a question in the chat, Sarah. We have time? Okay, great. Carolyn Schmidt asks, do you have any specific suggestions on ways to reduce healthcare, health insurance costs, which among other things are one of the drivers of high education costs?
How about the federal government cover it? How about that? Again, we're nowhere near that, right? This is what I'll say to that. That being the driver is not okay. I think about our education system. I think about healthcare. Healthcare is going up for a lot of people this year. Have to change their budget. And if you're on a fixed income, that's definite. Thank you. You're doing great. That's definitely a problem. So the solution would be, I wish we could scrap the whole thing and start over. That's not going to happen anytime soon. So right now, it's just making sure that we find different and creative ways.
I think we have time for one more in the room, if anyone has one. Any others in the chat? Oh, we found one.
I've not heard climate mentioned, and our current governor is pretty much a climate denier. What could you do as lieutenant governor to help us create an environment that will sustain human existence on this planet?
Woo! All right, let's give a hand clap for that. I'm gonna follow you. Yes. Well, climate change is real. Let's point that out. Elephant in the room. And the way the climate has shifted. I think about Russia this year, the snowstorm. I would advocate and bring it up as far as climate change and put it back on people's radar. Because right now, the way the federal government has really taken it off as a priority, and our governor is not really concerned about that. But I would bring it back to the State House and advocate.
Time for one more question. Anyone in the room? Esther, anything you want to use the rest of your time for? I think we're...
Thank you for having me, and the conversation continues. Thank you. Oh, and I will say, if you want to learn more, check out charlestonforvermont.com.
There you go.
Anything else? Our final candidate for the night is Ryan McLaren. Ryan, thanks so much for being here. Welcome to Addison County.
Yeah, that's right. We'll be able to see what I'm doing. You're good? You're good?
There you go.
Hi. Hey. Well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm Ryan McLaren. I'm running for Lieutenant Governor, and I spent my entire career in public service in Vermont. And it started as an AmeriCorps member way back right after I came back home from college. And I had the opportunity to work for our last Democratic governor, Peter Shumlin, on his first campaign down in Rutland and Addison counties. Actually, I was an organizer here in Millbury and worked with some folks. I just came from a friend's house, Ellen Knoxville, down the road, who talked about healthcare. And yeah, so had the opportunity to work for Governor Shumlin for a long time, both on the campaign side and for the state of Vermont. And then I spent the last 10 years of my life working in Senator Peter Welch's office in the Senate and the House as a senior advisor and campaign manager. And now I'm taking on this new task. And when people ask me why, I start with my parents. My parents didn't have an opportunity to go to college. They both grew up in the Northeast Kingdom. My dad's from Barnet and my mom's from a dairy farm in Concord. Parents were immigrants, came down from Canada, and half her family spoke French. She's one of 13. Half of them spoke French in the home, and half of them spoke English. But they managed to raise me and my two siblings in a 900 square foot house in Essex Junction, Vermont, and make it work. And they had help along the way. I grew up on WIC, so I ate government cheese as a kid, and we needed food assistance. And I grew up on Dr. Dinosaur, a program that Howard Dean created to make sure kids like me had health care and their parents didn't go broke trying to keep us healthy. And they accomplished their goal. They watched their 3 kids walk across the graduation stage from college. And everything in their life they did to make that happen. And I'm running for Lieutenant Governor because the opportunity for a kid like me growing up today to have that chance is nearly impossible. Everything, the infrastructure of opportunity that made my life possible has eroded around us. We're the 3rd most expensive state in the country to raise a kid. It costs almost $40,000 a year to raise a child in Vermont, more expensive than California. And the systems that made my life possible, the ability for my parents to buy a house, the ability for my parents to send me and my siblings to a public school that they had confidence in, the ability for a kid like me to get the healthcare I needed when I needed it at a cost my parents could afford, all of that, all of those systems are broken, are breaking all around us. And so I feel this fierce sense of urgency, having 2 girls, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old growing up down the street from my parents' house right now, about what their future looks like. Can they make it here? And we're doing fine compared to my parents. Or can my parents, who just retired, and are living in the same 900 square foot house in Essex make a life here for themselves anymore. And that sense of urgency is coupled with what I've seen in my work traveling around Vermont, talking to Vermonters for the last 10 years. My job has been to make sure that people feel a sense of confidence and trust, that their lives and their experiences are reflected in the work that Peter Welch does in Washington every single day. And I think he's good at that. I think our team has been good at that. I think I have been good at that. So if you're a farmer in Orwell, or you're a teacher in Bennington, you see a piece of your life in a vote that Peter takes, or you know that what he's doing in Washington is deeply connected to the real lives and experiences of people here in Vermont. And we've lost that sense of trust. And I think I can help rebuild it. And along with the sense of trust we've lost a confidence that if you work hard, you can get ahead, that things might be better at the end of the day for your kids or your family, that you can create a life that you dreamed of here in Vermont. And my opponent in this race is cynicism and nihilism and hopelessness. And I had the experience of breaking my back. I was paralyzed in a skiing accident 8 years ago, almost 9, it'll be 9 on St. Patrick's Day, up at Mad River Glen. And that's hard. But I've come to appreciate the perspective it's given me. And if it's taught me anything, the gift of my accident has been this real deep-seated belief that we don't get to choose exactly what the circumstances of our lives are, what the world we confront every day looks like. A lot of that is out of our control, but we can control how we respond to it. And, if you wake up in a hospital bed one day and your legs don't work, you get a choice. It's like, do you pull the cover over your eyes and wait for a miracle? Or do you get up and go and just do the work to try and make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better? And I've spent my career just doing the work, not for headlines, but because this is my home. I believe in this place. I believe in the people here. And I know what we can be. And I'm running to rebuild a sense of confidence of what this place can be. Our best days can be ahead of us. They will be ahead of us if we commit to ourselves to doing the work and making things just a little bit better every single day. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to answer questions, and I really appreciate your time.
Last time, so maybe we'll start with
sure.
the Zoom question. Okay, so Fran and Spence Putnam, not sure which one wrote this question. If you've read Bill McKibben's book, Here Comes the Sun, you know he is calling for a quicker transition to solar.
Yes.
How would you help make that happen in Vermont?
Amen. We have to do it. We have to do it. We have to, and this is true in solar, it's true in housing, it's true in a lot of our challenges. Like, the cost of doing nothing is extremely high, and we do not have time to waste. To Dave Sharp, I see over there asking about climate change. We don't have time to waste. And time is a privilege for a lot of people. It's a privilege for, my parents don't have the time to figure out, they don't have 10 years to figure out how to control costs in education or in property taxes. We have to solve those problems now, and we have to elect people willing to act. So, one, I totally agree with Bill McKibben. Solar is the cheapest form of electricity available on the planet. It's the most plentiful. We have to deploy it now, period, end of story. And we have to create a regulatory environment that will do it. And that means, to be perfectly honest, attacking our regulatory system that did a tremendous job solving the problems of a previous century, but are not addressing climate change, they're not addressing our housing needs right now. And so I wanna look at Act 250. I wanna look at these things that are slowing the process down, because it's also deleterious to our democracy, frankly. We elect Democrats to do things like fight climate change, and then we have to wait 6 years to deploy electric vehicle charging or deploy broadband, and then Donald Trump takes the credit for it. No wonder people don't have confidence in our party, in our brand. Like, we have to believe in what we believe in and then act on it. So I'm willing to do that.
So that's a good segue to this
Yeah.
question about Governor Scott.
Sure.
I think, a lot of folks in Addison County are focused on, and rightfully so, right?
Yeah.
Making sure we win some of those Senate seats back.
Yes.
I totally agree with that. The governor, though, does populate those agencies. Some of them are great career workers. Some of them are political appointees that treat the laws like they don't exist, like the Renewable Energy Standard, like the Global Warming Solutions Act. I'm an environmental attorney. That is my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts about how, if you are elected to that role, how you can raise a light to the ways in which Scott has really made life, one, more difficult, and two, made these regulatory environments, creates the sorts of rules that make it hard to deploy solar or to build housing faster?
Right.
All while still he's been there for a while.
Yeah.
We have to do something
Yeah.
to combat it, shine a light on that.
Sure.
So, if you could talk to that, it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be, I don't want to pretend like any one of us running can wave a wand and make Phil see the light on some of these things. But, my policy is to agree when I agree and disagree when I disagree. To be honest with people, it's something that has served me well throughout my career. Like, I am an honest broker. I have a reputation of getting things done and working well with people. I would not be able to take on this task if that weren't true. And the administration is some of those people. I've worked closely with them to help support the work that they need to do in agriculture, in energy, in water, in housing, as part of my job. That is our job. One of our constituents is the state of Vermont. And so, whether putting Phil aside, because when we start talking about him, it's a political conversation. But the work is being done at an agency level in ways that I have found in my work in Peter's office, we can often accomplish things together. Flood recovery is a great example. We work very closely with their administration to try and deliver FEMA money to Vermont. There's a lot of work, FEMA's its own problem. But the drought, we worked hand in glove to make sure Addison County farmers had access to federal drought resources when the federal government was on the fence about whether they needed them. And so, we gotta try. And I found at moments that we can be quite successful in it.
We have a question in Zoom. Can I go to this one first, Dave, and then come to you?
Yeah.
Okay. So Hannah Deming asks that part of the challenge of affordability is how Act 250 affects small and medium-sized businesses in the state.
Yes.
Do you have thoughts about how the Vermont legislators can re-examine Act 250?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but I mean, the first is if it costs $5 million in 5 years to build anything, of course, small and medium-sized businesses aren't going to be able to develop in Vermont. We need to democratize the system, and that means not creating a system that is actually accessible to normal people, not well-capitalized and well-funded developers, basically. And so the two things that matter most to me are time and predictability and consistency. So that's 3 things. But if we can do those things in Act 250 and in all our permitting, so it's not on the whim of a particular person in Addison County, and the answer you get in Addison County is the same answer you're going to get in Windsor County or Windham County, that will go a long way in speeding up the process. And frankly, we have to reconsider what it means to be a party to some of these things, where a single person can get a veto on a affordable housing project down the road because they don't like how it looks. And we have to have a hard conversation about what that means for our communities. Because that's not a democracy to me. That is the individual taking precedence over the collective, and we need to fix that. Can I? Oh, no, thank you.
Hi, Ryan. Good to see you here.
Yeah.
And remarkable progress in
thank you.
mobility. That's fantastic. I am a huge supporter of public education.
Yeah.
And we clearly have crisis in public education.
We absolutely do.
Two that I would identify is one, property taxes.
Yeah.
And two, the quality of our education.
Yes.
So, how would you inform the legislature and their work if you're going to be at the podium in the Senate?
Yeah.
Where are you going to push to have what happen in education?
Great question, Dave. And I think the answer, honestly, is prioritizing student outcomes. We have extremely good data-driven information about how kids learn best. We know what matters to teaching a kid, and what I am a product of public education. The teachers I had, I can, like, Mr. Martell, Mr. Lausch, like, there are people in my life that made my life possible, that made my college education possible. Public education teachers. And we know the most important thing in student learning is a high-paid, high-quality teacher. Time with that teacher in a classroom. The other thing that's quite important is social emotional learning. So that means being in a classroom, depending on your age, with enough kids where you can learn from each other. Enough people, so you are learning how to be on a team, learning how to be in a community. And so I think much of our challenge in the conversation on public education is adult problems. Our own sense of nostalgia, our own sense of fear, and if we can focus on outcomes for children, that means a kid in Addison gets the same exact opportunity for a public education as I got as a kid in Essex Junction, then I think we can solve some of them. And we'll answer Dave's question, which is what's the right number of districts? It's not 119. It really is not. And it's not for cost reasons, but it's not for quality and opportunity for kids. Because if your kid's class has 4 kids in it, that kid is not getting the education it deserves. And so if we focus on outcomes for students, I think we can help solve some of the cost problems. And I'm over my time, so I need to stop talking. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our candidates and for being super cool about the 15-minute time limit. We wanted to make sure everyone had the equitable amount of time, but I believe our candidates have all agreed to be here for the remainder of the meeting. So after we adjourn, if there are more questions, I think they have agreed to stay for a little bit. I also want to say that we hope to host more of these Meet the Candidate forums during our Addison County Dems monthly meeting. So please keep an eye out for those notices on Front Porch Forum, on our email listserv, and in the newspaper. So let's do another round of applause for our 3 candidates.